Hello and welcome to our first Excel lesson by Base Impact. My name is Lewis McMillan and I hope you enjoy this. So we're just going to go through very basic ideas of why sports scientists need to have some good skills in Excel, all the way from professionals that have been in the business for however long, and all the way down to students that are just getting started in sports science. It's probably one of the most crucial skills you can get, even though you're never really taught it at university. It's a skill you kind of need to have, mainly because you're working with a lot of athletes' data nowadays and you need a place to store it, and so you need to be effective with it, efficient with it, because at the end of the day you don't want to spend all your time on the computer. You want to be with the athletes one-on-one, actually helping them and making an impact. So if we can help reduce the time that you are on the computer and doing all of this, then that's a bonus for us and that's a bonus for you. So today we're just going to go with a bit of basics, very basic overview of how to make a table, getting calculations out of the table either via pivot table or formula-based information, and finally we're just going to go through some statistical analysis information. So I hope you enjoy and I hope it's worthwhile for you. So we're on to our database. So this over here is an example of a table that we're going to talk through. But this is just like a basic one. So when you get your CSV file, this is actually probably more like what you're going to get. So your data is going to come through, and you're going to be wondering what you're going to do with it, how you're going to get it into a table, and how you're actually going to make it useful. So obviously copy paste, put it all together. Now you've got the date in this weird order. So what I'm going to do is go Shift Control and go all the way down. And then I'm going to click on General and I'm going to click on Short Date. And now it's in a date format, so it's nice and easy now. Now we can make it more understanding. So here, this might be a force plate because I've got a CMJ jump height, I've got an SJ jump height, so counter movement jump and squat jump, and then I've got an eccentric utilization ratio. So that is just the CMJ height divided by the squat jump height. So then we can have a look at whether an athlete is eccentric dominant or concentric dominant from these jumps. So how do I make it into a table? Well, just click on Insert, click on Table, and there we go. Click OK, and now we've got a table. Now I would advise everyone to look at this section here. So you've got your table design, you click on table 11. This is quite hard to understand. The table 11 is quite hard to understand when you're doing formula-based information, because you'll have a multiple number of tables usually in your worksheet. So having tables labeled 1 to 11 is not going to be very helpful. So sometimes it's better to label what the table's about. So I'd say TBL, shorthand, and then on this occasion it would be jumps. I've already got that name on the other one, so I would call this TBL data for this example. So there we go, that table's all labeled up. Now the other thing that you'll notice is these numbers are different than these ones, and also they're also not coloured. So what do we need to do? Well, we stripe it. So you press Control, we press Shift, and we press down. And we want to make them all uniform, so we'd go to General again, and I would click on Number, and now they're all to 2 decimal places. Now to change that, you could click this one or this one, and now they're all to 1 decimal place. Simple as. Now to make the color coordination, what we've done here is we've just put a bit of conditional formatting up here, and we've done those above 1 are going to be green, and those below 1 are going to be red. So how do we do that? We go New Rule. Format only cells that contain. So here you can see that you could change cell value, specific text, blank spaces. So it's really helpful when you've got errors or you've got calculations that haven't quite appeared yet. You could just blank them out. You could do specific text you're looking for as well, which is really beneficial if you're looking for a specific name, like a forward, and then that highlights them. But on this occasion, we're just doing numbers. So I'm going to do greater than or equal to, and I'm going to do 1.0. That is going to be green. That's going to be OK. And then the opposite, I'm going to go New Rule, cells that only contain, and I'm going to go less than or equal to, and I'm going to do 0.999 just to be sure. I've done 3 nines, and then click the red, and then we press OK, and that's it done. Now I've put in the position here, but maybe imagine if this was all manual, me just putting it in, that would have been over 379 times I would have had to manually put that in, which have been not fun and would have taken up a lot of time. What instead you could do is a little formula like this, which is called an index formula, and I'm just going to highlight that so you can see it properly here. There we go. Do another space here. There we go. Now you can see it properly. So we've got the index. What we've done here is we've attached two tables together. So we've got another table in the control section, which I'll show you. So this basically says index, look at TBL control position, match that with the name, and then look at the TBL control, and I want an exact match. That's what the 0 means. So if I go on here and show you, as you can see, at name, match at name, the at name is right next door, this one here. So each one will be at name there. The control the control for name, the 0 means an exact match. 1 means less than, it means like an indirect match. So I'll show you on here. So this is TBL control. You should always have a control panel, I think, and you should always put like some little bits and pieces so it makes your life easier. So in this one, all you had to do was once put in the players' names here and once put in their position. Now you could do this with if they're part of the elite squad, they're part of the reserve squad, their age, their like which squad they're in, under 9s, under 10s, etc., all the way up to first team, whatever you want to put in. If they're going through PHV, post, circa, all this information you could put in there and then index it, match it, and then you would get all that information automatically and you'd never have to input it. The other one, like we said, was the less than function, which was the 1. Now you could do it with indirect, so as you can see, so that would be 10/10 2019, that would be week 1. I've just done +7, so 17 would be week 2, 3, etc. So then any date between 10 and the 16th would be week 1 with a indirect function, or the number 1 instead of the 0 here. I'll show you. So instead of this 0, you'd have a 1, would then be week 1 because it's an indirect, it's the closest match to it. So these are some of the things you can do with the table. The other thing I want to show you is I've put players as player 1 to 9 and then 10, 11, 12, but Excel's got a bit of a quirk in the fact that player 1 would be here, but then 10, 11, 12, and then 2, 20, and then it would be 3, 30. So what you want to do if you want to get them in order, you need to do player 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, 3, 0, 4, 0, 5, all the way up to 0, 9, and then 10. And then there would be an order here, 1 to 9, 10, 11, constantly going through to 27. So that's a little quirk. Just make sure that you know that in case you ever find that you're missing data or you think you're missing data, you're not. It's probably that. So one thing you can do with tables is obviously you can change these. So that would be defender. You might want to see defenders and goalkeepers, but you might only want to see the players it's attached to. Don't want to see him. That's fine. It's a bit clunky. It's a bit annoying, and it's also got a lot of data. So to report on that is quite difficult. So what I'd rather do is either put it in a pivot table like this, or I might want to put it into a report, which I will show you in a bit. So let's first of all put it into a pivot table. So we go to insert, we've clicked on the table and we click pivot table. Now the benefit of also putting them in the name range of TBL jumps is that we know that the whole TBL jumps has been picked there. You can see with the kind of dotted line here, and also the fact that it says it there. Now we can either put it into a new workbook or an existing worksheet. Sorry, a new worksheet or an existing one. The location could be here. I don't want that. I want it in the new worksheet. So I'm going to click OK. There we go. That's nice and easy now. So now on this new worksheet, we're going to work on this pivot table. So we come up with this pivot table here, and we might want to put, and you've got to play around with this to see what's best for you. So we might put names here. We might put dates up in the top column. We might put positions there as well. Put positions here. Take that out, and we might just put CMJ. Now, depending on where you put the name and the position, switch that round, it switches around the graph. Sorry, the table itself. So then if you got, so you got this information, and as you can see, if I switch these around again, how it's laid out will be totally different. So I'm going to move it back. Now, mainly your pivot tables will do them as a sum, but you can change this. So you go to right click it, summarize values by, and there's a whole load of things, and there's more options. You can even do it by standard deviation, or whatever. We're going to do averages, even though we've only done one jump per day. We're going to look at averages. And the reason why is because we're looking at a longitudinal, so what's the average outputs? So a good thing about having the position above the name is that we can go, these are the players, who's got the highest, and then you can do things like sort A to Z, or you might want to sort smallest to largest, so largest, here you go. So you've sorted in these orders, who's got the biggest, as so, and then you go, well, where are they sitting against the averages? So this player's around the average, and then everyone below, so he's just below. So these lot you could highlight red, these ones you could highlight green if you wanted to, however you want. The other thing you could do is do max, so who's got the maximum height, and then you'd sort them. You'd do the same thing, sort largest by smallest, and then it would revert to this one, and then these all would be sorted. So these are two really easy ways of doing it. So I'm going to add in this, but we're just going to look at averages for this for today. Okay, now you can also do a filter here. So maybe you just want to see the players, not everyone, you just want to see the defenders. So you've put the filter, you put position up here, put it in the filter section, and now all I can see is that. But again, this can be quite clunky. Sometimes it's better to see something visual. So I like to do this, take that filter out, take this out. I'm going to put the dates here. And then I like to see the differences in the dates myself. And then I'm going to click Pivot Analyze, and I'm going to insert a splicer. Now I'm going to select two, and these two will interact with one another. So I'm going to put this one here and this one here. So I'm going to click player 12, and what you see is that all this data has changed, but also this has changed to just midfield. And if I do the opposite, and I click goalkeeper, only the three highlighted are goalkeepers, as you can see. You can do this easier by right clicking, splicer settings, hide items with no data, and do the same on this side. And then visually it's easier to see. Ooh. Perfect, there we go. So there we go. So when I click on player 1, only the forward position comes up. And if I did the opposite and I just clicked forward, only the players came up that way. So it's a really nice, easy way of doing it. It's a much more visual way, and so when you're doing a report this way, that's probably something I would do and use splicers. So also what I do is I do a pivot chart. Now, good things about pivot charts are that they are dynamic, they're fluid, and they work with everything quite well. You just stick it there. This time we're just going to do a bar chart really. And then I don't like these, so I normally click on them, right click and hide them. And so now I have a normal looking chart. And so if I was to click player 12, player 11, player 10, player 1, you see how dynamic it is and it moves. So that's really nice, that's really easy. The only problem is that I see is that one, you've got two different jumps that are to do with centimeters, so that's this side, but now you've got a ratio here as well, so that's looking tiny. So we're going to have to do something about that to make this graph look better. So we're going to go into design, change chart, go on combo and click secondary axis, and then do lines with markers. Click OK, boom, and there we go, nice and easy to see. Now, something to remember about this, even though it's so fluid and it works really well, if we were to go back to our database and say, if we go to the bottom, so control down, if we were to add some data here, so if we do the 24th of the 10th, 2019, as so, and then we just go player 1, and then we do 56, let's do 42, and we've got this automatically calculating up. What we need to do now is we see that that data hasn't changed. So when we click on player 1, click on player 1 that hasn't updated. So what do we need to do? Well, we need to go right click on there and click refresh, and then it pops up. So now that data is added, and then we've got an extra point here. So remember to do that. There's another way of doing it. Go on data and refresh all. Now you need to do that to ensure that your pivot tables, because they don't automatically update, you need to update them there. So that's one advantage that formulas have over the pivot tables, is one, they automatically update, and two, they use up less space. So when you use a lot of pivot tables, it can make your workbooks really slow, because it starts making them quite big, so there's a lot of megabyte usage in them. So realistically, formulas make your files a lot smaller, make them a lot easier to handle, and mean they can actually open. So some of the older computers find it hard to deal with pivot tables accordingly. So let's have a look at some formula-based ways of doing things as well. So this is another way that I've visualized it, and this is like a daily report instead of looking at a longitudinal report like a pivot table. So this individual daily report was quite simply done. So first of all, we've got a drop down box with all the names. So this is really good and really easy. Instead of having a list of names and dealing with it that way, you could just change it, and as you can see, the data automatically changes accordingly. And also put in a formula here that is today's date, so every day it will change depending on the day it is, obviously being today. So how did we do this? Well, this list of names was very simple. We go back to our control panel. I highlighted this, my list, went up here, and I said list players and clicked enter. And then look at that. So I click off this, click on there, and that's my list of players. So then I went up here and I clicked data. I went on data validation, went on list, because I wanted a list, and then I just equaled list players. So now my drop down menu is all my players. And my players are the same as my players. This is the most crucial thing, is that your TBL control, the list of players, are spelt the exact same as your list of players or the list of athletes on your database. Otherwise the formulas won't work properly. Anyway, so we go back to player one. Here we go. So this is his jumps today. Now there's a lot of formulas that you can do. So you've got equals average, you've got equals average, you got equals max, equals min, you got equals what else have you got, standard dev as well. So there's a whole load of different ones. I'm just going to give you some basics. You got equals sum as well. Now on top of that, you have a ifs function and an if function. Now they run very similar. This is based off more criteria. This is based off of one criteria. So if their name is that, then sum it. If their name is that and the date is this, then sum. And you can do the same for average, max, min, and standard deviation is a bit different, so we'll talk through that in a bit. So what we're going to talk about first of all is how I did this. So work out, automatically give me today's scores. So let's have a look at the formula then. There we go. So average ifs, the TBL jumps are CMJ, and the TBL jumps name are the player's name on A3, which we can see, and the TBL jumps date is at A2, as you can see. So this is really simple, very simple. It looks a lot more complex than it actually is, and it doesn't take a lot of time, and you can just copy and paste it wherever you need to put it. So on this occasion, I'll just undo this, and we can just run through it. So you can see that names are highlighted as well. So as you can see here, it says average ifs. So the average range we're looking for, because we're wanting to find the information from CMJ. So this is what I put in. Now the criteria range 1 would be the name, and we're looking for the criteria is we want these jumps of this particular person, so on A3. Now the dollar signs, I mean that it's always locked on A3. So when I scroll down or I scroll to the right, like I drag it to the, do this, then always, as you can see, it stays on A3 and it stays on A2. Delete that. So it stays there. So how I did that was I pressed F4. So it would be on there, and I press F4, and then it would be lock both positions, so A and 3. If I clicked it one more, then it would just lock on 3, and then the third one would be lock on A. And I've done the same thing for here. So this would be criteria range 2, which is the date, and the criteria 2 is based off today. And that's all I've done. And then that would give me a score of 55 for the CMJ. And then if I want to change it to squat jump, just turn it to SJ, and there we go, we get 36. And the same for EUR. Now max is very simple. It's even more simple because all I want to know is their maximum jump they've ever done, or personal best, whatever you like to call it. And that was just max if their jump was a CMJ and the jump name, the person who's jumped it, is A3. Simple as that. And the same would be for the average, but instead of max, I've just put average ifs. Very simple. And then all you do again is change CMJ to SJ and SJ to EUR. Now this is where it gets a little bit more complicated. So I'm just going to copy that and put that here. Okay. So as we said before, an ifs function is really easy for these ones. However, standard deviation doesn't really have an if function. So we've got to try and create our own equation, and that's called an array, when we add those funny squiggly lines at the sides here. So what I've done here is standard deviation, if of the sample. I've done it with brackets. If the name of the person is A3, then I want to know the CMJ jump standard deviation for that sample. So if I did it normally, so then I'd do that, and as you can see, it's all set up, and then I'd just do Control, Shift, and Enter, and then I'd get my true number and what the standard deviation is for it. And as you can see, it's here, and then all I do again is change it with SJ and EUR. Now if I click in it, you can see that the array is now gone, so every single time I click on it, I have to change it back, so I have to press Control, Shift, and Enter again, and then I get my array equation back and the true standard deviation. So now I just wanted to do the coefficient of variation, another very simple one to understand how much spread is in the data. So I've done the standard deviation divided by the mean, and that's all I've done, nice and easy. And so you could do it as a percentage. So what you do is you highlight all three and go to home, and then you click this one here, and there you go, and then you see your variation in your data. You do your counts. So this guy's got 15 because remember we added an extra day. So if I did another player, there we go, he'd only have 14. They'd only have 14. So there we go. So now what we've done, we've put this count in is so we can work out the confidence interval of 95% of the mean. So we've got a standard error of the mean. So we've done the standard deviation, which is here, and we divided that by the square root of the count, or square root of n. And then we've just times the SEM by 1.96 to get our confidence interval of 95%. And now I've used that as my error bars for my mean. This is my max, and this is today. And it's really easy, and it's a really easy set of graphs because they change automatically, and it's nice and simple, very clean, very easy to look at. And literally you could just copy all of this and send it off as a report, and there'd be no problems. Now, I've made a very basic one here. The example I wanted to do was keep it very simple, keep it really light, so that we could just get a really quick overview today of how to do and what Excel is capable of on a very simple level that could be done in less than 25 minutes with you guys. So if we did this and had a really nice report done nice and quickly, think about the time that you could save when you're working with your athletes. You could just input the data, automatically get it out with them, give them a report, give your coaches some sort of information that you want to show them, say look at their change over time, or this is the today versus your maximum, and this is your mean, this is where you're sitting comparatively to it. So you could do really simple stuff, and I just wanted to get that across in the first lesson that we have together. So I hope you enjoy, and talk to you soon. Cheers then.